as a piano player at age 5, and my dad was a tyrant, and I was, you know, at age 5, and your dad's like, no, you know, and I go, oh, and you know, thank God, in 1963, I got hit by the bolt, the drumming, this thing. There was a 1940 single tension rod, calfskin head Ludwig drum set sitting in the living room, and I picked up the sticks immediately and held them wrong, but the first beat I was told I played was an easy medium swing beat, but I probably looked really awkward playing it, but apparently it was grooving at that time.
So when did lessons come in as far as private teachers at all? Or?
In Iowa, it's a fairly big state, right in the center of the country, and the only teacher that was teaching of renown was Jim Coffin. And Jim Coffin was up in Cedar Falls, which is almost up to the Minnesota border. I was 300 miles from where I'm from. So my dad, we tried to lock into Jim Coffin and realized that for me it was a long commute. So that never happened. Ironically then, in the old Yamaha days, I rekindled with Jim, you know. So,
and Jim, who was a real motivating force in music education and drumming education.
That's right.
It was great to have that. So were there local drummers that you heard, that you met with? That?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, and everybody has these bands, and I remember going to see this one, I can't remember his name, some drummer, and it looked like the largest floor tom ever made, and it was, ironically, it's an 18-inch floor tom.
Oh.
And I remember, wow, this is the biggest darn drum I've ever seen, you know, so I was really impressed by that. I don't know why. But there was a huge rock and roll thing going through Iowa, you know, in the 60s, and I'd try to go see, I mean, I remember Booker T. Jones came through with Steve and Duck and Al. They came through my town in around 65, I think, or something, and played some little, I mean, my town was only 8,000 people, so they came through. I go, oh, this is really cool.
So did you learn things by listening, or was it a combination of, were there any drumming books that you went through, or music books, reading books, were there?
I mean, you know, when you start studying formally through school, you know, you're going through snare drum books and method books. I was always a singer. I sang in church. So I was able to, you know, I couldn't wait to go into the bass clef, let's put it that way, because, you know, you're singing tenor, and no, I want to be a man, you know, so I get to sing the low notes now. But, you know, I was an all-state singer in Iowa. My whole quartet made all-state, singing Brahms. So I became a very good solfege and sight reader. At the same time, I was working with my high school and junior high band directors at age 15, playing in their weekend band. So that's really where I started, you know, listening to tunes and form and melodies.
And piano is, of course, it's a percussion instrument. It's such an important instrument to begin with. So you really called it, you know, exactly how fate would have called it.
Yes.
You had that fundamental foundation. So that now it kind of leads you, and you end up, your path takes you to Berklee College in Boston.
I had, you know, I started going to camps. You know, I just asked, and you know, I think there was a little hemming and hawing about the monies, but the first camp I went to was in 1969. I was at Northwest Missouri State University, and it was a concert band camp and a jazz band camp, and I became the jazz band drummer at camp, so I knew things were going right. And then the next year I went to Iowa State University for basketball camp, and I made the all-star team out of 150 guys. And it was something I always wanted to do, you know. I was always a basketball player, and I was so crazy when I moved out here with Rufus that I almost walked onto the Laker camp. And then, of course, then I realized I was absolutely nuts to do that, so I did not do that. Piano is still a part of my life, and you know, I still write on piano and guitar.
Interesting. So at college, were there musicians that you met, that you began to play with, that opened up doors?
Yeah, I mean, Toru Okoshi, who is just, you know, he's like the Japanese Miles Davis. He's a professor at Berklee. I got to meet a great upright bass player named John Lockwood from South Africa. I met Neil Steubenhouse at Berklee. I met the great Michael Thompson in my melody and improv class with the great John Laporta. And Michael and I have been together since 1973. a lot of these guys, you know, I met Steve Smith, he was a year older than me, and then I met Vinny, he was a year younger than me, and all of us ironically ended up in the same Gary Chafee class. You know, there was a really, Ken Wood-Denard was in that class, and somebody else. But the contacts that you meet now, don't forget them, because I still work with these guys all the time. I mean, Neil's the bass player in the Oscars. You play with Neil, you know, and you play with Mike. You know, it's like we're one big family.
78, you joined Rufus. How'd that all come about?
Well, I almost moved to New York, which probably would have been a big mistake. I was going to move there in 1975, 1976. And, but the session scene in New York in those days was really tapering off, and a lot of stuff was moving west. And so my idea to move to New York failed, and I ended up joining these other bands. And I was in this really good band, and we were touring Ohio. Yeah. And we were doing the exact same path as Rufus and Chaka Khan, but like clubs. Yeah. And they're doing, huge venues. And this one club in Cleveland, Ohio called the Rare Cherry. Yeah, I want to go to that club. It was like a 3,000 seat disco, big computerized light board, and it was our second week there, and we were a really funky band, and it said, "Welcome, Rufus and Chaka Khan." And there's those old stories when we were younger and famous people come into the clubs, and we get all antsy and overplay, and I found out that through the hard way with Chick Corea in the old days. But what you want to do is just be yourself and relax. And sure enough, I see the entire band in the front row, and then I see Chaka finally coming in, and then the one guy, Hawk, goes, "Can we sit in with your drummer?" And I said to the lead singer, Jimmy, I go, "Yeah. And so everybody got up, and it was the last Rufus band, as it is, and we ended up playing 2 straight sets. Whoa. And I mean, I think it was Chaka's birthday, so there was obviously some partying going on. But the next morning, I hung out with those guys till 6 a.m., and that day I went down to their venue and sat in with them. And unfortunately for the drummer, and this is a very interesting scenario about, do you go and take the gig? Or are you a nice guy? So I went and took the gig. And I was in Los Angeles 2 weeks later.
But you're still a nice guy.
Most of the time.
Game-changing moment. So that was probably as they call it, a peak experience.
Yeah.
But you also, that happened, that shifted all your experience and your playing, and came into that point where now you're playing with them, and the chemistry at that moment, to play, to groove, to feel, to become one, obviously it worked.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, plus I had already targeted, and this is an interesting scenario that nobody brings up. At Berklee, I specifically targeted certain bands that I would want to join. And ironically, there was like at the college, there was a Rufus band that was playing Rufus tunes or something. So I ended up playing with them a little bit. So I knew all the songs before I got into the situation. Of course, Chaka broke my heart, and she goes, "I'm leaving the band." I mean, literally after that first tour, and I go, "God, I just got in the band, And I had to turn down, I got other offers when I first moved to Los Angeles to join with Stephen Stills, and Chaka asked me to join with her and leave the band, and I said no. I stayed, and it's a good thing, because then we were introduced to, I already had known Quincy, but Quincy became our producer in 1979 on a record called Master Jam.
So Quincy Jones now steps into the picture.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't, in our industry, it doesn't get much bigger than Quincy Jones.
No.
Quincy, I mean, with all that he's done, from We Are the World and the amount of artists that were there, just Sinatra.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing the depth of this man's skill and talent and ability. As a player first, trumpet player first,
That's right.
and then evolved into this arranger, and then just massive music, mogul. You sat next to him, you had this moment to spend some time with him. Where has that relationship now gone from that point to now?
I'm doing his 80th birthday party at the MGM Grand. Going to be televised. It's going to be taped, of course. So that's that. May, we've got a gig in Atlanta, And July, we do a 3-week world tour.
What are his gigs like? Is he playing? Is he conducting?
I don't think he's playing anymore. I mean, he can't play trumpet anymore, of course, because of his aneurysms. But in the old band days, he'd have a synth up there and play some really cool stuff. But he would be conducting. He's conducting, and we've got Greg's going out finally, and Nate's going, I think, and so we got the 18 assembled.
And Quincy's wisdom. I mean, this man, because he's done it all, and because he's been around at every aspect of music, is there things that you've learned from him specifically that stays with you, that has opened up you as a musician and maybe even as a person?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was a kid, I tried to go to he had music camps. He was like the guest star at these national stage band camps. I couldn't quite get in to see him, but because I had actually targeted him also, and there's thousands of things. I mean, leave your ego at the door. Lose your bebop mentality. These are all quotes. Because all of us are jazzers. We come in, we want to play jazz, and in reality, that stuff doesn't sit well on a pop record. So he taught me about producing and techniques. When he listens to a mix back, he takes an Oratone speaker on mono, and he turns the mix down so low, you can't barely hear it. And what he hears is lead vocal and the point of the kick drum. He taught me about that. And then when you bring up the mix, everything's in place. Like just, wow, this is some cool stuff, He always talked about Sonny Payne. It's Sonny Payne, man. That's his guy, and and he still, when we do big band charts, he'll still ride my ass a little bit, and it's okay. I want him to ride me, I want him to, because he knows.
But the ability of knowing bebop and jazz and having that fundamental, really foundation. I mean, I think what happens in today's world now, jazz is not as, it is the greatest export that America has.
Right.
But yet in America, it's hard to find good jazz. You've got to go to Europe to find good jazz.
Right.
And Quincy came from the school, as you did and as I did too, where we played jazz. Even though we got involved with pop, and when the Beatles said it was a pop thing, that jazz knowledge that we had was still a big part of who we are.
That's right.
So knowing how to control that is a whole different story, but it's a very, very important quality to have. The next generation really needs to step into that world of jazz, even if they might not use it as much in their playing. It's almost like you have to have that discipline to be able to know how not to use it.
Well, exactly, and one other thing, that if you can't afford it, get a turntable.
Yeah.
And go to Amoeba and maybe spend $15 on 3, I hope you could get them for that cheap, old mainstream records, and kind of study, because I have Vinyl Night, and by the way, that's my, I own that phrase, thank you. I'll have Vinyl Night and I'll study records, but it does take you back to that space, and it's always a learning.
Very different listening experience, right? What we listen to with downloads or CDs, the pristine sound of digital,
Right.
And then of course that I guess crude way that vinyl was, that after 10 listens, it changed.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I think so's my left high end also. But yeah, that's true. I think I wore out Deep Purple's Hush. There's no more top end on that record. I don't know why, but anyway.
With Quincy Jones, it leads you to Off the Wall.
Yes.
What happened with it?
Well, remember now, he produced us first,
Right.
Master Jam, and then I was called by him and Ed Eckstein, and they go, do you do sessions? Because sometimes band guys don't do sessions outside of their element, And I go, yeah, because I was the session drummer, I was recording drummer at Berklee. I read everything there, and so I said, yeah. He goes, well, what are you doing Thursday? And if it wasn't for the fact that I had recorded the Rufus record Numbers, our solo record on ABC Dunhill in 1978, I possibly would have never gotten that gig. because Quincy listened to that record. He goes, oh no, I like him, like the way he plays, and he wanted something different. You know, and Duke and I know exactly that path he was taking, you know, right before stuff like that, and there was not just me, but there was a complete new influx of people. Rod Temperton, you know, Jerry Hay, and all these people were kind of thrust in at the same time to a new generation, and it happened to be from the great artist Michael Jackson. And you know, he and I have played on many records. I've played on 18 of Michael's hits, and Off the Wall was still my favorite record. And I got to hang out through the whole process, you know, because I wanted to see how Michael would layer his vocals. And I, you know, I'm so hotshot harmony cat from Berklee, and I go, that doesn't sound right. And then I heard him put the third part on, I go, oh. You know, so you know, through the whole string process, and, you know, then Paulinho coming back in and doing overdubs, and it was a very cool experience.
You worked with him and had that ability to be able to be in a room with him and see what he's doing. What was it that you could pull from those experiences?
Well, he was extremely focused, but I mean, at the same time, he was really shy. And he's with the cats, and we're hanging out. He's like he was one of the guys, you know. We always joked around about collecting these big jug wine bottles and bringing them in so we can overdub this high-end kind of drone hip rhythm parts over these tracks. And so, yeah, I'd come in and go, how about this one? He goes, yeah, that's pretty good. And so we went in a song called Working Day and Night, which is a really funky tune, and tracks all down. And so Michael and I go into a little small room with these two wine bottle jugs and beaters. And it's just kind of very ethereal, it's just surreal, and there's like sunlight in the afternoon shining through, and I'm like, and we're playing, you know, it's like.
And you playing the mouth of the bottle? Or the
No, I'm holding it, and we're just playing on it with metal. I mean, if you listen to it, there's a lot of activity going on in the upper range.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my wine bottle shatters all over my left arm, and I'm sweaty and stuff, and the track keeps playing, and Michael goes, oh, JR. And he starts picking glass out of my hair. And I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. and then all of a sudden I hear Bruce Sweeney, and he goes, hey, what are you guys doing? And I go, I have a problem. I need another wine bottle. And so that was my glass picking story.
We Are the World. They put together this massive effort, and I live on Long Island. And one of my teachers and a dear mentor of mine was Jim Chapin.
Yes.
And Jim Chapin's son was Harry Chapin.
Yes.
Harry Chapin died in a car crash in 1980. And it was Harry Chapin's manager, Ken Cragen, that Harry wanted to raise money for the Hunger Foundation. It was Harry's goal to do that. Harry died too young, and then Ken Cragen at the time, I think, was working with Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie.
He was Lionel's manager, that's right.
And at that particular point, they kind of carried out Harry's dream, and I believe We Are the World is dedicated to Harry Chapin.
That is correct.
And the likes of his effort to want to feed people with his cause of what it was. Harry Chapin, for those who don't know, Google Harry Chapin and Taxi, Cats in the Cradle. There's some great songs that he
Amazing artist and writer.
We Are the World. I mean, that experience. I mean, just to know that you're not only playing, you know, with these phenomenal musicians, and you've got Quincy Jones, probably the greatest captain of the ship that could be there, and you've got the inspiration from Harry Chapin, who has died on his way in a car crash, signing his label to raise money for the World Hunger Program. I mean, there's such a deep behind it. What was all that like?
It was in twofold, of course. We cut at Lion's Share because of Kenny Rogers, and who was part of this also. And it was interesting. I mean, you know, there's a making of this, and it was basically, we cut it as a trio. We cut it with Louis Johnson on bass and Greg Fillinganes. And I don't even remember if David Williams was playing guitar or not, or if it was Lukather. I don't remember, because there were so many paparazzi there with cameras and video cameras rolling in Lion's Share A, which wasn't that big. And Quincy's in doing his thing in the control room, and I can see it's really literally chaos. And I finally put my foot down. Everybody get out right now. Because if I didn't, I mean, because Quincy was looking at me, he's going, come on, so, you know, because I got to run the show. And we were ready to go, but everybody kept talking and shooting pictures. And I go, stop, get out. Come back in 30 minutes, and you guys can do whatever you guys want to do. So that's when the three of us cut. And then I think it went down in one take. I swear to God it was one take. And you know, history will say that it is the largest selling single of all time.
Absolutely.
I think it's, what, 80 million units or something?
Absolutely.
For one song.
Yeah.
And that's why when you look at all the records I've played on, man, that's not really hype, it's true, you know, because of certain songs were big. And then we got it done, and Michael ran around holding John Taylor, my son, you know, and there's pictures of that. And then the rest is history.
It really is history. I mean, you think about when you listen to the tune and you hear the recognizable personalities of the singers,
Oh gosh.
and you can without seeing it, you can name them as it's going across the line. And then of course when you watch the video of it, the shot of it, and you see it going down, it really has moved something forward that is, you know, what we will see anything like that probably not in our lifetime.
No, we never will. And we're actually doing that next week
Yeah.
in the show,
Yeah.
which is going to be interesting.
Oh, that's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
You went down to so other, Lionel Richie, I mean, there's so many other artists that you began to, the Pointer Sisters, I mean, all of this that came down, David Lee Roth, these artists that you started meeting up with. So here you are now, you're recording with all these different artists. Is there anything that stands out with any of these artists that in your career, of your observation, that, again, was another one of those turning points?
Wow. Of course, you know, Rufus broke up in 1984, so that was a turning point, because what it did was it showed me that I didn't really need the band. And my session career was doing very well. I had turned down very many tours. I turned down Bob Seger. It was a Michael Jackson situation. I turned down Lionel Richie. I turned down Steve Winwood. I accepted John Fogerty. And I became his musical director in 1986, but I didn't realize it was hell week, because he was getting sued by Saul Zaentz, and we could not play one Creedence tune. But I was so well paid, it didn't matter. So it was about the baseball tour. So I hired Alan Pasqua, Neil Stubbenhaus, and Marty Walsh to do the gig, and we went to Ebbets Field. It was all right. It was the baseball tour. So that was good. You know, going to New York and cutting with David Lee Roth, which was, you know, Ted Templeman called me up and he goes, you know, we're going to go a complete left turn here from Van Halen. I go, okay. And got to play with the great Willie Weeks. And those two singles, California Girls and Just a Gigolo, are really cool with Edgar Winter. And then I think probably the biggest turning point would be Steve Winwood's Back in the High Life Again album with Higher Love on it.
Absolutely.
It's when they actually let drummers play intros to songs, you know.
But what you did was so classic. I mean, that's really where all this culmination of what you learned and your experience all came down to each certain moment. But that really kind of, where they allowed you to play and open up and create and be who you are.
We got away with it. I mean, you know, and that's why I always try to invent between 1 and 4 beat intro fills, setups, we used to call them.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be for the disc jockeys would have some time or spin time.
Right.
You know, so with Higher Love, it was basically, I had like 18 seconds of Johnny time, you know. And it's like, you know, it's 73 degrees in the city. And he's like, here's the new single. No, it's the new single by John Robinson, yeah. but we don't get credit. We're in the back. You know?
The point is you had to deliver, so and that's really where we spoke about fundamentals during the sessions panel, about the fundamentals of being prepared, that when you finally have that opportunity, you're able to pull it off.
Yes.
I mean, there probably are many stories where opportunities were given like that, that the musician or the artist at that level could not pull it off, and they took a different path.
Right.
You had the goods to deliver. That's powerful.
Well, I'm very, very, very blessed from that aspect.
Powerful. Barbra Streisand, I mean, this when it comes to just legends in our industry and legends of entertainers that we're standing and singing and delivering the song,
Right.
not the dancing, not any of the entertainment stuff on the edges of what's it, just purely the quality of someone's voice
Right.
and the delivering a song. I mean, she really is, you know, at such a high level to play with her, perform with her. What is it like as far as like even rehearsing with her? What's that experience like?
I mean, I've been playing with her since '87, live '92. And I watched a complete transformation of her, you know, because our first '93 tour, it was big for her.
Yeah.
It was huge,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of variables. And now we are, you know, she is enjoying her art talent, her singing, and she's delivering, and she's hitting the notes, and she's holding them out, and she's making you believe in the words she says. And she can swing. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And you know, but she still covers all these different bases. And you know, I never thought I'd do Broadway tunes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, do you want to be in the pit? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a great respect for those drummers, but then I find out that there's some of these charts I'm playing, these are all famous Broadway. You know, Fanny Brice, and you know, all these famous hip songs that require an interesting drum part.
But with the musicians that you're working with and how you're delivering it, it's really not Broadway, you know, it's Barbra. So I mean,
Right.
The Broadway gig is you play what you play every night, every show the exact same way at the exact same metronome marking.
Right.
You probably have a little bit more freedom to a certain degree when you're with her, and just the fact of hearing the voice. What do you put in your monitors? Do you like vocal or?
There are no monitors. Everything's in ears.
Or-
And so what I do is I developed, I mean, I didn't develop, we use Avioms. And, but what I do is I work with the engineer and I set up the all 16 inputs the way I see fit for the rhythm section. And then we have 3 mixing stations. There's the rhythm section mixer, there's the house mixer, there's the string mixer, I think there's another guy. I mean, it's quite complex with Claire Brothers. So I have stereo drums, of course, and I'm hearing everything like I'm at Conway or Ocean Way. You know, I want to hear it exactly like that every night. And always save your Aviom patches, people, in case you lose power. And she's down at the end there, and I always listen to her. I keep the strings, the orchestral side, down in case there's a delay in the event. You know, and there can be. So I mean, it's a.
So you're able to really control, you know.
I control.
As you hit the road now with Quincy Jones, I mean, this is going to be the complete legendary tour. You're going to reach an incredible amount of people.
Right.
There'll be massive media about this event because of his 80th. What can you share with this next generation as we close down, JR? What can you share with them for them to really realize, you know, with your experience and your wisdom? Wisdom is the combination of knowledge and experience.
Right.
The knowledge you have from a kid in Iowa playing and your mom showing you these different grooves, and to the experience of what you've been through in your life. What is it that you can deliver now to the next generation to understand for what they should be prepared for?
I'm constantly growing, even today, musically, and I still have goals that I have not reached yet. I mean, I think if we all lose sight of where we want to end up, then we're never going to get there. So, you know, my goals, there's some big goals coming up here, but I always say don't lose sight of who you are as an individual. You know, excuse me. We I think sometimes are going to be, especially, you know, you guys are here in the big city. You know, this is, I mean, there's a reason why you guys came to USC. And, you know, you're here, you're close to the film industry. This town is controlled by the film industry. And the film industry is incredibly lucrative and quite satisfying. I love it. I mean, if it wasn't for the film industry, I mean, I work a lot of films now. I just did the Superman movie, and of course I said the Muppets, and I just did The Hangover 3, because I did The Hangover 1 and The Hangover 2, so I had to get on the Hangover 3 contract. And but it's don't lose sight of your goals. I mean, I want to score a film. I don't even care if it's a B horror slash movie, you know. But I want to, and I know how difficult that can be. So, but there's all sorts of other things, you know, and it's about giving back, you know. So I'm involved with Muhammad Ali's Parkinson's charity, and we helped the Andre Agassi Foundation build his schools, and I work for the McDonald's Corporation for their children, and it's very important to do all those things without losing sight. This record industry, record industry, can be very, very frustrating. You know, all the records that he and I played on, and you played on, you know, we're the last of the breed. And I don't want to make it sound dismal, but it doesn't have to be that way. You guys can rewrite this chapter and not make it so bleak with the record industry. We love making records. We love it. I mean, sure, and when you guys start getting into it, you're going to find this process amazingly addictive and fascinating. So, and what comes out is like, and it's not like you and them, it's a team, like we talked about earlier on the panel. It's like, you know, it's like when the Lakers were really the Lakers in 1987. That team, the output every night was one. It wasn't, oh, you know, I'm not even gonna go there about the new Lakers. So that's, if I can, you know, just don't lose your focus. Don't get married until you're 30 or 40 now, or twice. You know, I guess that's it. Just, you know, and have fun. Have fun with it.
And have fun with it. Boy, it really has been great, J.R. You know, I've always been and continue to be a fan of yours. We've known each other for a long time, and I get such a kick out of seeing you continue to keep a consistent, positive, energized attitude, your willingness to grow and learn, your willingness to be a chameleon, to change and feel and learn and listen and be a part of it, and still maintain levels of humility. It's always been very impressive. You've done it. You are a great role model, and in the drumming community, and specifically the music community, we need that more than ever, and it really is the next generation that will take this to see where the 21st century music will go.
Exactly.
On behalf of the sessions, thank you so much. You are a great leader of what we do. We need you. Keep out there and doing it. We look forward to seeing you continuing doing what you do and loving it.
Thank you. Thank you for the session.